All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Delta Region Community Health Systems Development Programs Conversations That Matter training, session 1 of 2 for this week. I'm Robin Nato, Senior Program Coordinator with the DRCHSD CCC team. Before we get started today, I just have a couple housekeeping things I want to go over. If you haven't done so already, please connect your video feature by selecting the camera icon in the lower left corner of your screen. To avoid background noise and feedback, please remain muted when you are not speaking. To unmute your line, simply select the microphone icon also in the lower left corner of your screen. We'll ask you to introduce yourself in just a few moments. We encourage questions and discussion, so either unmute your line or utilize the chat box located in the bottom ribbon. We encourage the use of the phrase "I'm complete" to indicate when you are finished speaking. The National Rural Health Resource Center, or the Center for short, is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to sustaining and improving healthcare in rural communities. The center has served rural hospitals, clinics, and other providers nationwide for over 25 years in the following core areas: transition to value and population health, collaboration and partnership, performance improvement, health information technology, and workforce. The Delta Regional Authority, DRA, and the Health Resources Services Administration's Federal Office of Rural Health Policy have partnered to support the Delta Region Community Health Systems Development Program. Through a cooperative agreement with the federal office, the center administers the program and manages the provision of services to selected hospitals and communities. Services are provided through technical assistance, which includes various assessments, on-site consultations, action planning, and coaching implementation of best practices and adoption of key transition strategies. Building a culture where difference is valued. The center is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and anti-racism. We create an environment that reflects the communities we live in and serve, a place where everyone feels accepted and empowered to be their full, authentic selves and where everyone belongs. And if you want to find out a little bit more about that, we'd be happy to have you check out our website. And before I hand it over, I would like to pull up our polling.
Thank you, Irina. Well, welcome. Many familiar faces here for me. I think I've done most of your Lumina debriefs, so it's really good to see you again. I think I've looked through your list of names. It looks like everybody's names are showing up with their full names. So if I miss somebody, we're asking that you change your name. We're trying to build a kind of a name to face recognition, trying to get people to remember who folks are, get to know each other. So this will be really helpful. And so with that, thank you, Robbie, for wrapping us up. The other thing I would ask is that if you have your workbook, the workbook link, if you don't have it, if you could bring it up. If not, I'll put the link into chat, as we will make some references to that throughout the session. Let me know if you have any challenges opening that. And with that, we're going to kind of dive into what we're going to be doing today. So with that, we have 4 objectives here today. Thank you. And so if I could get a volunteer to read each of these out, let's get some voices in the room, start getting to know each other. So if I could have somebody read these 4 objectives for our time today together.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Learn to draw upon human assets and build social capital to facilitate sustainable organizational and community collaboration. Learn how people think and process in order to develop inclusive conversations with profound respect. Learn the importance of outlining the aims and the experience participants will have, and learn practical skills to facilitate effective meetings.
Okay. Thank you, Grayson. So that's very high level, what we're going to be going through for the next 4 sessions. And with that, just to really get into what we're going to be doing, right? This is all about conversations. So today's session is really going to be about learning a framework that helps people think, work, and talk together. And that is really about building this shared understanding. So if you remember nothing else about what I'm telling you right now, it's that we really want to find ways, again, for people to think, work, and talk together. Now, in part because conversations are a really important part of how we communicate, right? This is how we share ideas. This is how we learn from others. So in our time today, we're going to be discussing and practicing having conversations that matter. These conversations will lead participants to a more active engagement. We hope that we'll build a deeper collaboration, really elevate motivation, resulting in a better understanding, clear understanding, shared understanding, and appreciation. So with that, Conversations That Matters is a method that encourages just that. It encourages people to participate. It doesn't shut people down by making them feel judged or threatened. To the contrary, this is a method that really is intended to encourage participating. And we're encouraging participating by creating space for all of these different voices, by intentionally considering the different types of thinkers and personalities that we have in our communities, on our teams, and at our tables. And so kind of thinking about those different types of styles that we went through with Lumina, how does that impact how we come to the table? How does that impact our communities and how others come to our table? So that's really going to be the purpose of what we're getting at here, that this is an inclusive framework. It's about engagement. It's about shared appreciation, understanding, and really driving those teams to action. What that's going to look like for today is that we're going to, just real high level, we're going to go through some introductions and an overview. We're going to look at what your expectations are for the sessions that we're going to spend together, kind of figure out what those anticipations are. We're going to share our expectations. We're going to have a conversation experience. We're going to understand the foundational facilitation principles. We're going to talk about the theory. We're going to talk more about the theory. You're going to get a chance to do some activities, to unscramble some conversations, and then we're going to really debrief it and talk through what we experienced. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Travis for some introductions.
Thanks, Jill. So we've got our agenda and our objectives laid out for our session today. So I want to go around and just do some quick introductions. And so you're going to give your name, what you do, and where you're from. And then in the chat, drop in there where your dream vacation location is. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go on your dream vacation? And for our introductions, we're going to use the stacking method. So I'm going to call out 3 names at a time, and just to give the next couple of people a heads up that they should be prepared to speak next. So I'll go first, and then we'll go to our other facilitators, Jill and Irina, for today. So I'm Travis. I am, by day, I am a music director at a church here in Rochester, Minnesota. So that is a little bit about me. I will pass to Jill, and then Irina, and then Robbie.
Hi, and I probably should have done this at the get-go, but hi, I'm Jill. I am a facilitator and trainer with Hugh Life, and I'm calling in from South Central Wisconsin to be with you this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Irina Firstman, also trainer and facilitator at Hugh Life, and my location today is Maplewood, Minnesota. 20 minutes from Minneapolis, 20 minutes from St. Paul, 20 minutes from the airport, 20 minutes from anywhere I'd like to be.
Thanks,
Perfect
Irene.
luck.
We'll go to Robbie and Brescia and Courtney.
Thank you. Hi, Rita. You're in the perfect location. Makes everything so much easier. I'm Robbie Nato. I am the Senior Program Coordinator with the Center in the Delta CCC team, and I am calling in from Superior, Wisconsin. So about 3-ish hours away from everybody. I'm complete.
Thank you. Ambrisha, Courtney, Erica.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ambrisha Johnson George. I'm a senior program specialist on the Delta Grant on the community care coordination team. And I am coming to you all from Clinton, Mississippi. And I'm complete.
Thank you. Courtney, Erica, Grayson.
I don't see Courtney.
Did we lose Courtney? Okay, we'll do Erica, Grayson, and Helena.
Great morning, everyone. My name is Erica Ledette. I am a program specialist with the Delta program, and I am from Shreveport, Louisiana, and I'm complete.
Thank you. Grayson, Helena, Leah Williams.
Good morning. My name is Grayson Collins. I'm the project manager and business development admin at DeSoto Regional Health in Mansfield, Louisiana. And New Zealand would be my dream vacation location. And I'm complete.
Thank you. Helena, Leah Williams, Nikki.
Hi there, my name is Helena Wolf, and I am Director of Public Relations, Marketing, and Physician Recruiting, along with the Community Champion, and I am from Houston, Missouri, and I am complete.
Thank you. Leah Williams, Nikki Precious.
Hi, I'm Leah Williams. I'm the community champion at Atmore, Alabama, and I am complete.
Thank you. Nikki Precious, Shannon.
Did we lose Nikki? No. Nikki's muted.
She looks like she might be frozen.
Maybe frozen.
That's okay. We'll go to Precious, Shannon, Stacy.
Hello, my name is Precious Fritz, and I am a program specialist here at the center, and I am coming from Prattville, Alabama today.
Thank you. Shannon, Stacy, Tabitha.
Shannon is talking. I can see your lips moving, but we can't hear you. That's one way to make sure everybody can get connected and express themselves. All right, probably rejoining.
We'll go to Stacy, Tabitha, Tara.
Good morning. My name is Stacey Dozot. I'm the marketing coordinator at Oakdale Community Hospital, and I'm also the community champion. I'm complete.
Thank you. Tabitha, Tara, Richard.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tabitha Jones, and I'm the community champion for Delta Health System. I'm from Sunflower, Mississippi. I'm complete.
Thank you.
My name is
Go ahead.
My name is Tara Hervey. I'm the Director of Social Service at the Tallahatchie General Hospital and Extended Care. I am from Charleston, Mississippi, and my dream vacation would be to Paris. I am complete.
Thank you. We'll do Richard, and then we'll come back to Shannon and try Shannon again.
There was kind of a glitch in that. I didn't hear who you said.
Oh, Richard, and then we'll come back to Shannon.
Richard's not on. I'm not seeing Richard. So Shannon.
Oh, all right.
I think this is Nikki, and I'm at the same organization Richard's at, Aaron and Harry, and I think we just had a glitch or something in our internet because I was disconnected for a while and missed my introduction as well. So,
All right, thanks, Nikki. Shannon, do you want to try one more time?
You're muted now. Now it's probably the unmute button. Uh-oh, still not hearing.
Nikki, did you get a chance to introduce yourself?
I did not. I can go on right now if
Yeah, go
it's
ahead.
okay. Okay, my name is Nikki Williams. I am the Network Program Manager and Community Champion here at Aaron E. Henry Community Health Center. I'm calling in from Clarksdale, Mississippi. My dream vacation would be to Egypt and Honduras, and I am complete.
Thank you, Nikki. Well, we'll try and come back to you again, Shannon, at some point as we get the technological issues worked out there. But for now, we'll go ahead to our next slide, our facilitator responsibilities. Before we dive in here, throughout these sessions, Jill and I, and Megan, when Megan joins us in a couple of weeks, will be occasionally asking for volunteers to read things for us so that you aren't hearing the same voices talking to you all the time. So please jump in right away as quick as you can when we ask for those volunteers. That will help us continue to move things along as quickly as possible. This is also found on page 5 of your workbook. If you've got your workbook up, you certainly don't need it, but we'll be referring to that periodically as we go and drawing your attention to that. So if you've got that pulled up and handy, this is on page 5 of your workbook there. The term facilitator comes from a Latin word that means to make easy. So our role as facilitators is to make it easy for groups to succeed. And how we do that has 4 parts, components to it. We focus on process more than content as facilitators. So the expertise that we bring to a group is how groups deliberate and think and talk and work together, not on what they are deliberating about. So we don't have to be subject matter experts to work with our groups. The wisdom, the expertise that we bring is in the process. And we trust that the wisdom is there in the group, that the group has the tools it needs to address the issues, to do the work that is in front of it. And we're simply there to bring a process to that group to help draw that wisdom out. As facilitators, we are there to help groups accomplish those tasks, to move them from point A to point B. And so our focus is on the task, on the work that the group needs to accomplish, and helping the people in that group to work together. Part of what helps us to do that effectively with a group is a style of flexibility and ability to adapt to what the group needs from us. That might mean playing the role of a cheerleader. That might be being a clown, an encourager, a taskmaster, holding that group's feet to the fire to get the work done that it needs to get done. So whatever the group needs from us in the moment, that's part of what we try to accomplish as facilitators. And finally, we work to have a good knowledge, a good understanding of group dynamics. Understanding that there are different attention spans at play in that group. In person, that can be a longer attention span. Virtual sessions, as you well know, can be taxing and exhausting, and so being mindful of people's limitations as they're in their virtual sessions. Every group also has extroverts and introverts, the people who are outspoken and are ready to jump in and share those ideas, and other people who take a while to think and to process. So how we as facilitators can create an environment where both of those thinking styles are valued is important. So we want to be thinking about how we design those sessions, how we lead those sessions, so that we're drawing out participation as fully as possible from everyone who's in the space that we've created. All right. Moving on to our conversation experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about the kinds of conversations that we have on a regular basis. We're going to do part of this as a large group, and then we'll move into some small group discussions as well. So I want you to think for a little bit about a conversation or a meeting that you have on a regular basis? I'm going to give you a little bit to think about that, and then I'm going to have you type that into the chat, and then we'll all hit send at the same time. So I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to think about a conversation, a meeting you have on a regular basis. And type that into the chat, and then I'll give you a little countdown and we'll all hit send at the same time. Give you about another 15 seconds here to finish typing in the chat. All right, on the count of three,
Okay.
Go ahead, Jill. What?
I was just gonna say, if you were expecting people to be typing in, I'm not seeing anything. I was
yeah,
waiting for 1, 2, 3.
Yes. So here you go. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. All right. Take a little bit of time, scroll through and read what other people wrote. And then I'd love to hear some verbal, some out loud examples, just a couple, conversations or meetings you have on a regular basis. Anybody can jump in.
I like
I'll
Nick,
go.
I like Nikki's comment about I'm a Williams, so they want to know who you're related to.
Yes, I am a family. Well, in my family, there are a total of 15 aunts, uncles, including my mom. Each one of them has 4 or 5 plus children, and so we're from a small town. So what happens is, when people say, "Oh, you're some kin to the Williams," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm some kin to the Williams," and they go, "Oh, so who's your mom? Is it Sally? Is it Mary? Is it Carolyn? Is it Colin?" So they literally have to go down. "Oh, yeah, so your mom is the oldest girl," and I'm just like, "Look, it's the same conversation," and I find that on a regular basis. Then they get into, "Oh, your family loves sports, yeah, because Dad played football and you were a cheerleader," and it's just the whole conversation, and I run into that on a regular basis.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's hear one more example. Another story of a conversation or meeting you have on a regular basis.
Mine is just catching up with my supervisor, finding out what they did for the weekend, how the family is, making sure everybody's okay, and if there's anything special that needs to be done or that can be helped with.
Yeah, thank you. Now think about meetings or conversations that you have that go well. How do you know that it went well? How do you know that it's going well? What's happening in that conversation?
Effective listening.
Thank you. What else? What else is happening in that conversation that lets you know it's going well?
Smiles. Everyone leave happy.
The interchange conversation between others.
Projects getting done.
All right, now think about a conversation or a meeting that didn't go as well. What was happening in that conversation?
Tension.
Frustration.
Confusion.
People feel like they're not being heard.
Yeah. What is the importance, the value of a good conversation?
I would think that if you can point out someone who's having a lot of frustration that doesn't seem like they're feeling like they're heard, and pointing them out and saying, hey, let's hear what your idea is and see where we can go with that, and how we can take it as it is or help fix it and merge it and go in a positive direction.
Yeah, thank you. What else? What is the importance, the value of a good conversation?
The importance of a good conversation is to make certain that the message being delivered is received and that everybody understands what the topic or what the conversation is about and its intentions.
Yeah, thank you. Well, for the rest of our conversation here around conversations, we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and you are going to be discussing the answer to this question. I'm going to drop it in the chat here. Oh, Irina dropped it in there as well. What are you hoping to learn in these 4 sessions? What are your hopes, your anticipations? What do you want to get out of these 4 sessions together? So share 1 or 2 of those anticipations with each other in your breakout rooms. We'll give you a little bit of time to do that. And then be prepared to come back to the large group and each person share 1 with us when we come back to the large group.
And I would like, Robbie, if you could join room 7, since you're host, I couldn't assign you. All right, here we go.
Thanks, we'll see you back in a little bit.
All right, Travis, everybody should be coming back now. It was
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to have you share those anticipations by using the annotate tool in your Zoom program. I don't know if your Zoom program looks like mine, if we've all got the same version updated, but if you can see Jill's got the screen shared there. There should be a little pen icon in the lower left. If you click on that, that will bring up a little menu bar on the left, and you can use the pen to draw, you can use the text tool to click and to type. So wherever you want on that slide, go ahead and share each of you 1 anticipation that you talked about in your small groups.
Does everybody see annotate feature in your menu? Okay, maybe it's at the top for you. Go at the very top. And click on the toolbar. Yeah, click on the toolbar and you should have an option annotate. Once you click on annotate, then you will have a bar that Travis was describing that has a typing text or a pencil to draw or a check mark. So choose the typing text, which is letter T. I see some of you already doing that. Go ahead and type. You can choose your.
Mine.
And I can help move things around. Oops, I can't. Never mind. Go back here. Okay. This is a good practice for you to see how you can use different tools, features in Zoom for engagement. First time is always a little harder. The more you do it, getting better and much more fun. You can see me as a host being able to move boxes. I'm going to delete mine. So I see.
Is there anybody who can't get in? Stacy?
I can't.
Okay. So when you go to the top of your screen and it says you are viewing Irina Firstman's view with Hue Life Screen, do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then it says view options.
Okay.
Click on that and then there should be an annotate option in there in that drop down.
No, there's not.
Okay, I wonder if it's something that's being blocked by
Very possibly.
your system. So here's what I would ask for everybody who can't put something type into the annotations. If you could put it into chat, then I will make sure that they get in there.
Perfect. Thanks, Jill.
Sure.
Yeah, that can help too. You watching then, Jill?
I am. And I'm not seeing anything. Okay.
So we have 7 groups. Were we asking for 1 per group or 6 groups?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 groups.
One per
There we
person
go.
should have. So we should have one from everybody.
All right. What are you hoping to learn in the next 4 sessions? What do we got here?
Got that first one.
All right, more messages coming. Jill, I'm not actually able to go back to chat because probably I'm in the
That's
pool.
okay. If you can see what's on here and move it around as it works for you, I think I've got everybody.
Awesome. So I'm gonna move some things up.
And Precious, what were you trying to share in there? I can't really see the.
It was a little picture of what you were talking about with the annotate. So I was just making sure that I understood that it was that you click on the 3 little dots, and when you click on the 3 little dots, there'll be a little drop down menu. It'll say Zoom ratio, request remote control, or it'll say annotate. And so then that's when you click on annotate, and then you'll have a menu bar that pops up on your left hand side, and that's where you can select the little T for that.
Thanks.
Just trying to give visuals.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there anybody got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're missing 3 ideas.
Well, 3 of us is
I
making,
thought you said there were 14.
yeah, 14, 15 total, 3 of us. So 1 more. 1 more.
Oh, I see it.
There you go. Jill list just popped in.
I've got all the ones out of chat, I think.
Okay, then we're good. I'm gonna save that.
Perfect. Thanks. Well, let's take just a brief amount of time and go ahead and go around and share yours out loud. And if you want to provide a little bit more context to that, we'll take about 10 minutes, so not a lot of time to get into the weeds on each of those, but anybody can start and then pass to somebody else. So share with us a little bit about what you're hoping to get out of these 4 sessions.
I can start.
Thank you.
Grayson and I talked about a meeting that I had a year or so ago where I had 2 people that were in that meeting that were actually standing in separate corners yelling at each other. So what I'm hoping to find is a way to reroute a destructive meeting to where it doesn't get to that point and get them back on track and feeling good about each other.
Thank you. Who would you like to pass to?
Let's pass to Helena.
I knew that's what you were going to say. Mine was just to be a better listener. I'm one of those that is always like thinking about what my reaction is going to be or what I'm going to say next versus active listening. So I really need to, really pay attention to what somebody's saying versus what I'm going, what my response is going to be. So.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass to, Helena?
I will pass to Tabitha.
Well, Precious and I talked about, it was very good conversations. We talked about effective listener, team building, as well as effective communication. And I mean, it's all coincide with each other with the effective listener pieces that I want to make sure working in the community that I'm hearing the people and making sure that I'm comprehending as well so I can relate that information correctly. And also with the team building is that working with a team of people that they understand that we all on the same accord and how we can reach the resident as well as the stakeholder effective.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass to?
What do you want to pass to, Tabitha? You're muted.
I put it on mute too quick.
There you
go. Grayson.
Thank you.
Well, me and Leah were talking, and I was telling her that I've started running a monthly meeting, and I got really good feedback at how to the point and effective that it was. And so just being able to replicate that over and over again, just run very quick, concise, but effective meetings where every bullet point is hit, everyone feels heard, and there's a good exchange of information between everybody so that they feel it was worth their time.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass to?
Let's see. Helena?
Helena already went.
Oh, she did? Stacy then.
Okay.
So me and Nikki had a great conversation. It was so nice meeting her because I'm actually on the prior year cohort. So I told her last year I missed these calls for the conversations that matter. So I want to get out of this learning the foundations of the conversation. And I just kind of touched on some other key points with her that I kind of learned along the way. So I actually pass it to Nikki next.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass to? Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
It was indeed a great conversation, Stacy. I guess what I am hoping to take is to focus on the conversations that is happening now. So just being actively engaged in the bullet points or whatever topic is being talked about right then, instead of changing the topic, because I tend to do that a little bit in conversations. So just focusing more on the conversations happening now and taking away as much as possible from that conversation. I pass it to, let's go with Precious.
Hi. So Tabitha and I again really enjoyed our conversation. Tabitha, it was great. We just talked about, I thought it was great that we had like almost 2 levels of wants from this. She really wanted to make sure that she was effectively listening and being able to hear what the community is saying, and learning those active listening skills. And my focus is on learning skills to effectively communicate, to make sure that I am providing a good service to you champions, to make sure that I am effectively communicating, you know, what should happen next. So I thought that was really great. And we had a great conversation about that. And I will pass it off to trying to figure out who hasn't gone yet.
Okay, Erica,
Okay.
Tara, and Shannon.
I'll pass it off to Tara.
Well, what I hope to learn out of this session is to pick up on pointers of how everybody else is conveying their community champion roles, being able to communicate effectively with my community so I'll be able to know what they're looking for and what I'll be able to offer. So just building a good relationship with my community, seeing what everybody else did and how they did it.
Yeah, thank you. We got Erica and Shannon left. Who do you want to pass to, Tara?
Erica will be fine.
I met with Helena and we had a great conversation, and we talked about active listening, listening to listen and not necessarily listening to respond. And so those are some things that we hope to learn in the next few sessions. And I'm complete.
Thank you. And Shannon.
Can everybody hear me now? Okay, good. Well, being a newbie, any information is great. I'm hoping to continue to build off of what was already established here and make it better, make our community have a little more input, and effective communication is always key.
Thank you, everybody. Sounds like you had great conversations in those breakout rooms. The conversation we just had is the conversation method that we're going to be teaching you today. So you got to experience it a little bit, and in a moment we'll dive into the nuts and bolts of how that conversation works and why it is structured the way it is. But for now, I want to tell you a little bit about where this method came from. So this is this conversation framework was began in the 1950s. It's part of a suite of methods called Technology of Participation, a bunch of different facilitation methods. Some of you have taken some of those courses to learn those methods. The methods are based on research and brain science, and they have been developed over time by the Institute of Cultural Affairs, ICA. ICA works to promote positive social change in the world and began developing these facilitation methods over a half-century ago, and they've continued to be refined and developed by practitioners all around the world since that time. And there are practitioners all around the world that use these methods, and particularly the one that we are going to be working on teaching you today. This method is known as the focused conversation method. We've called it Conversations That Matter, and that is just one tool out of all of the tools that ICA has developed over time. All of these tools are based on a couple of foundational pillars. This is on page 3 in your workbook if you want to turn to that page, but we'll also be putting sort of the highlights that you need to know on this slide here. These two foundational pillars are the first one is inclusive participation. Could I get a volunteer to read these bullet points that just popped up on the screen for us?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
It says every voice in sight is heard. Every person is given opportunity. No perspectives dominate.
Thank you. All three of those very important to this foundation of inclusive participation. And that begins even before the meeting starts or the session starts. So think back to when you arrived at this virtual session today. What did you experience that gave you a sense of welcome and belonging? Anybody can share.
Just being able to introduce ourselves and where we're from and what we do, like that matters. So
yeah, thank you. Let's hear a couple more examples. What else did you notice that gave you a sense of welcome and belonging?
Just the simple good mornings or hi, good morning, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. One more example.
I've got one.
Go ahead, Jill.
I think asking folks as a courtesy to other participants to make sure that your name is in there fully and correctly, the way that asking people to put in how they want to be addressed. And in other virtual sessions, you can ask, make people feel free to include their pronouns, their place of work. But this really does help people to connect that name to that face, that organization to the person. So I think that's a strategy for making people feel welcome and included that you're going to want to think about when you do this virtually and in person.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Other things you might do for virtual sessions, sending out a reminder email ahead of time. If anybody forgot the Zoom link, here it is for your convenience. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. All of those things. Sending out the agenda ahead of time. And when we're in person and we do in-person trainings, we have people's name badges on lanyards, and there's visuals up all over the walls, and there's usually like fidget sensory stuff for people to play with at the tables, for all of those kinesthetic people who love to have stuff to fidget with. So all kinds of things that go into creating an environment of inclusive participation. The second foundational value that's there is profound respect. Someone else, please read for us those bullet points there.
I'll read them.
Thank you.
Honor all individuals equally and trust the ability of individuals in the group to do the work.
Thank you. So it takes that atmosphere of profound respect to help make inclusive participation possible, creating an environment of psychological safety where people can be vulnerable and can be themselves in that space. Valuing all individuals, it means welcoming those perspectives that you may not agree with. I try to be mindful of that as the facilitator. What are opinions that are being shared that I may personally agree with or not agree with, and then I try to make sure that I'm not privileging the opinions and the voices that I agree with personally, but I'm trying to invite all of those different perspectives into that space. Let's hear one or two examples of where you have seen or experienced profound respect demonstrated. Who's got a story they might be willing to share really quickly? Anybody?
I don't have an experience, but the the ability of individuals and the group to do the work. It's hard to trust people that you don't know yet to complete a task. That's where I've only been at my job for 5 months. So I don't know who is good with completing and who is not good with completing. So that's going to be kind of difficult with me to not micromanage.
Yeah, thank you. All those things that we need to be mindful of in those groups and experiences. All right, I'm going to have you turn to page 6 in your participant workbook. In addition to these 2 foundational pillars, there are some other core values of these facilitation methods. We've already talked about inclusive participation, inviting, sustaining the participation of all the people in the group, recognizing the importance of each person's contribution. Hearing from each other is so important. And so you've seen us do that a few different ways. The stacking method, having you pass to somebody else so that we get all of those voices in the rooms, having people drop something into the chat, putting people into breakout rooms. There are various ways you can do this in person and virtually. Teamwork and collaboration are crucial to having that group get the work done that is in front of it in an effective, efficient, and economical way. We want the group to have some shared responsibility for the work that's in front of it and appreciate the diversity of perspectives that we bring to the table. We're bringing out the best of individual and group creativity. We're drawing on our rational thinking, we're drawing on our intuition, our emotional reactions, that dialogue between our head and our heart, the individual contributions, the group brainstorming, all of that gets balanced in these methods. And particularly, we want to make space for people to process those emotions, to be able to express those. That's not something we often devote a lot of time to in our culture. We often have, I'm sure many of us have heard, leave your emotions at the door, but we are emotional beings. Those are physiological responses that we have, and we can't just leave them at the door as much as we would like. All of that comes into the room with us. And so these methods try and make some space for that intentionally. Action and ownership, positioning the group to take action, to make decisions, to collectively own those decisions and give people a share in the process. People support what they help to create. And so we want a process that invites people to have some investment in that outcome. And finally, there's an emphasis on reflection and learning. We aren't just learning by doing, we're also learning by reflecting on those experiences. Valuing consensus, collective action, and reflection. All right, questions on any of that? All right, I'm going to pass to Jill. Jill's going to get us into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, the theory behind this particular conversation method.
This is the fun stuff. So when we're looking at conversations that matter, first I'm going to just preface all of this and we'll get into it a little deeper, is there anybody who did not receive their Art of Focus conversation book? And if you did not receive it, put your name in chat and we'll make sure that you get it. Thank you, Travis. So Travis is showing you what it looks like. Just want to really reference that this is an amazing tool. So as we're looking at the framework and the theory behind this, the book is full of information. So it's about the theory, it's about the structure of the conversation. There are I think there's 100 different conversations that are pre-scripted for you in that book. So it's divided up by topics, subjects, groups that you're working with. So it's an excellent resource. And Irina can, will really hone in on, read this book cover to cover. It will give you so much information. And as you're designing and building conversations, it gives you resources for doing that. And so we're going to talk about the theory, then we're going to spend some time designing, and you guys are going to get an opportunity to practice delivering and facilitating those conversations. So again, that book is a great resource. And with that, in your workbook on page 7, the conversation matter framework is creates a setting for meaningful group discussions that allow participants to share very diverse perspectives in a very hopefully safe, non-confrontational manner. So we're looking for opportunities to let people process through the topic, the question, the conversation, and creating space at a variety of levels to allow people to share and to contribute. So it helps people collaboratively share those insights and creative ideas on any topic, on an issue, on shared experiences, really trying to broaden our perspectives, really helping people to understand what other people are seeing, hearing, how they're feeling about that, what they think about it, and how do we come to decisions around it. And so with that, the conversations that matter framework is really about establishing among the group a shared awareness. So if you're going to take note of anything, please note that this is really about shared awareness. So make a note in your notebook, wherever you want to keep it. That is the goal of the conversation that matters. The applications for this framework are endless. I can tell you that we use the focus conversation every day. We use it in conversation, we use it in meetings, we use it in facilitation. It is foundational to the work that we do. So engaging communities in addressing public health, natural disasters, safety issues, improving efficiency, using how do you unite people around a change, either before, during, after. How do you address that? Using it to address conflict. I know we heard about that earlier in the day. Negotiating agreements, innovating growth, leveraging opportunities. I worked at Madison College for 18 years. We used focused conversation as a structure for agendas. We used it for every conversation. I use it at home. I use it. My husband will say, it's like, you're doing that thing again, stop. But it is structured in such a way that it really encourages and engages people to participate in that conversation. I also have 6 kids. They come home from school. How was your day? I don't even get words. I just get kind of these vocables. So leading them through this very simple structure for this conversation really helps to elicit much more meaningful information. So the options for using this tool are just limitless. The outcomes that we're looking at for the conversation that matters framework is really, again, we said earlier, to get the group to think, to talk, and to work together to build that shared understanding. So it really is about harnessing the people's energy and wisdom in the room. And I know we talked about that a little bit a couple minutes ago about trust. And when we talk about that, our aim here is to really get ourselves in a space where we understand that the energy and the wisdom is in the room. As the facilitator, it's our job to help that process along. It is their job to do the work, right? They have the talent, they have the energy, they have the wisdom to do that. And so if I could get a volunteer to read out the outcomes that we expect from a well-facilitated focused conversation, I would very much appreciate that.
I'll go.
Thank you, Nikki.
Moves people from a mindset of fear to a mindset of choice, empowerment, and innovation. Focuses individuals and groups on shared interests. builds trust amongst participants, leading to collective action.
Thank you so much. So those are objectives. What this is going to look like for you is if you want to go to page 7 in your participant workbook, now that we have some foundational understanding of the principles and the values of the top methods, and we've talked very high level, very quickly about some of the applications and the outcomes, let's take a look at what the framework itself looks like. So again, it's a fairly prescriptive, structured framework. And we really believe that this framework that we're about to show you, it has the robustness to engage all perspectives, but also lead your team on a journey that develops a shared appreciation and understanding. So we really start with kind of this collective pool of information that we share with each other, and we build on that so that we share what we've seen, what we've heard. Now we're going to talk about how we feel about that. What are our reactions to that? Then we're going to develop some options. How do we interpret that? What are the associations? And then hopefully come to some sort of decision. So this really develops that shared appreciation understanding. And this hopefully, again, like I said, leads to a committed action. And it works in conversations between two people. Like I said, you can do it with your kid when they walk in the door. You can do it with small groups. You can do it with large groups. It's very scalable. And it's also a tool that works really well in person and virtually. So there's really no limits to where you can use this. And why does it work? It works because it follows this natural progression our brains use when we process new information. So we all process information in the same way, in the same process. Some of us do it a little slower, some of us do it a little faster, but really the process is that we observe something, we react to that, we have an interpretation of what that means, and then we make a decision or we act. This is the same way that every human being processes information. So the effort with this, or the purpose of this structure, is to slow that process down. And by slowing that process down, we allow for all of these different perspectives to be considered so that we're making the best informed decision, taking the most effective action, and building significant commitment and buy-in from your participants. So the framework uses a specific sequence of questions that follow this natural thinking process. And as I said before, that first question, that first level is really, what do we see? What do we hear? It's this very data, objective level thinking. So what are we noticing with our senses? What did we see? What did we hear? What did we feel, like tactily, like the room was cold or the room was hot, or the chairs were uncomfortable, or there was no place to sit? What are those things that we're initially taking in? And then we think about how we feel about that, right? And I should also say that this is an opportunity. This is that go-around question. This is where you get everybody to kind of contribute to the conversation. This is that icebreaker. And so we are not judging it. Whatever is said, it's what they've experienced, what they saw, what they heard. So we don't ask how we feel or give our analysis or any justification. It's just the facts as you see them. Then it progresses through to our gut reaction. What are we sensing? How do we feel about that data? What confuses us? What excites us? Where are we concerned? Where is it really clear for us? This is then followed by exploring the significance of that data, right? And the reactions. So because I saw this and heard this, I feel this way. And now here are my options. Here's what I think that I could do about this, or here's what I think you should do about this. And From there, this is then finally we come together as a group to some consensus. We reach a conclusion, we decide on an action, we make a decision. And so one of the ways that we can do this, if you think about how we process information, is an example that I often use is fire, the smell of smoke. And so I love camping. I love being outside. I love a fire. When I have a fire and I smell fire, it's very, very, it's a very positive reflection for me, right? It simulates all kinds of memories of family and camping and our fire at Christmas time. But my best friend lost her house in a fire. She was coming home from a girls' weekend. She had 2 babies at home and her husband. She was pulling into the subdivision and could see these giant plumes of smoke. You could smell it. When Sandy smells smoke now, her gut reaction to that is to cringe, right? Because her associations with it are painful. They're very different from mine. Same stimuli, different reactions. And so our responses and what we decide is important, our analysis of that information is also very different. So it helps me to understand hearing what her reaction is to the same data that we have. And this is the case with your participants and your community members, right? You have no idea what their associations are. We're all looking at the same information and same data, but my reaction to that, my experience is very likely very different from yours. And because of that, the way that I want to move forward with action and decisions is also potentially very different. So we said this is about shared understanding. If you can build that shared understanding, when we come to the brainstorming and option development, we are now taking into consideration everyone's position, everyone's reaction, everyone's thoughts on it before we move to decision. Does that make sense to folks? And does anybody have questions? It was rather long-winded there. Okay. I would also encourage you at any point in this, stop us. Ask a question. If it's not clear what we're explaining, we really want you to get a really solid foundational understanding here. So don't hesitate to stop us and ask questions. Put it in chat or speak up. All right. And with that, I'm going to give you a kind of a scenario. We're going to run through a scenario about how this potentially plays out. So on this slide, you can see that we have Jan here, right? She's the software development company's newest employee. So there she is sitting alone at her desk. She's fresh out of college. She's new to this job, and she's found herself on a team with much more senior level employees. So she sees that they're in a conference room meeting. That's what she observes. All right. From there, after she notices that her team is all meeting, the project management team is in the boardroom, so clearly something's going on, and look to be engaged in a discussion of some type and this collaborative work. It's very clear to her what's happening. From there, she starts to have some reactions to that, right? She experiences something. So she has this emotional response to what she just noticed, and she begins to process that response. She starts asking herself, why wasn't I invited? Maybe they don't want me here anymore. Maybe they think it was a mistake. Maybe they don't think I'm qualified enough. So she's having all of this emotional response to what she's perceiving. From there, she's adding meaning to it, right? People around here are two-faced and only care about themselves. I'm going to take a job that John offered me and work in a better culture. She's making all kinds of assumptions based on what she saw, what she felt, and what she assumes that means. So now let's see what really happened. Okay. And what really happened was that Jan was emailed about the meeting, but her email wasn't delivered. So as it turns out, Jan updated her iPad software and her work email needed to be reconfigured. So that internal dialogue, that narrative that we put on things, that our participants put on things, be really intentional and cognizant of what people may or may not be thinking. Is there anybody who can identify with this story, who's experienced something like this? Like, I thought this and what it really was this? And anybody can chime in.
Yes, I have actually. Because I'm new at the facility, they're wanting me to sit in on marketing meetings, but I never got notice of when the marketing meetings were, and happened to see them in the conference room across from my office. And actually, they had forgotten to add me to the email list. So that was what I had experienced.
Anyone else who's experienced a similar situation?
I can share my experience. So, at the center, we have recurring meetings. So we have like huddles every Monday, bridge teams on Monday. So it really just depends. So we actually redid one of our Zoom links for huddle, and I was accidentally left off of the huddle meeting. So I just assumed that we weren't having huddle that week, when actuality, I was just kind of left off by accident. So it was quickly rectified. My team noticed that I wasn't there, but I was online, and they realized I wasn't included. So it was a simple fix.
And how was it a simple fix, Ambrosia?
They sent me over the Zoom information. So I was able to quickly log on because I was actually online at that time, just working on something else. So I was able to just hop on, look at the agenda, and hop into the conversation.
Did you ask, or did they ask you where you were?
They asked me. So they and they were like, "Where's Ambrosia?" And they were like, "Well, I see that she's green and she's available." So they realized once they looked at the invite that I wasn't included on there. So they just sent me over the information. And I quickly joined.
And so one thing I would say there is think about that in both directions, right? From the group that's wondering, Ambrosia's just blowing us off. Why isn't she here? And Ambrosia, who doesn't even know about it, or the person who does see that it's happening, like Jan in our example, that's like, sometimes it's that simple question, right? It's that inquiry instead of that internal dialogue where we tell ourselves one thing and that impacts the way we act. So really give people grace when those sort of things happen. And remember to create that space that goes back to that profound respect and inclusive, right? Is that if somebody's missing, don't assume that, reach out. So what are those things that we can do to really share more data and make sure that people are included and aware? And with that, Travis is going to dive in a little deeper into each of the components of each of these levels that I just went through. And again, I'm going to encourage all of you, stop us, ask questions as you need to. All right, take it away, Travis.
Thanks, Jill. So when we facilitate a conversation with this method, we're following this same progression of levels and thinking processes. We're structuring the conversation with a series of questions that's slowing us down so that we're taking our time through each of these levels. The thinking that happens individually with us in split seconds, we're slowing that down. We're doing it collectively as a group so that we can get all of that information out into the open, so then the group can make sense of it and can then act on it. And so we're going to look at what this kind of a conversation looks like at each of these levels. So that first level is the objective level. This is on page 8 in your participant booklet. The first stage here is, again, all about our perception, facts, what we've observed, the stuff we're taking in through our senses. Irina, can you put up that next slide for me? Thank you. So there are more examples in your booklet, but here's just a handful of examples of questions we might ask at this level. We're going to ask things like, what did you notice? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you do? Very basic questions, getting all of that information out into the open. Each of us, sees only a small part of the puzzle, and so this is our opportunity to take all of that input from the group and get everybody's piece of the puzzle out into the open so we can work with it.
And I would add here too that the types of sensory questions that we're going to ask at this level are going to be context dependent, right? So if you're at a county fair and you're talking about our class reunion and you're talking about what did you notice, what did you see, what did you hear, there'll be conversations. What did you taste? What did you smell? But if you're delivering a report to a group, you're not going to ask them, well, how did that taste? What did you hear? But it's really about, right? So it's like, what did you notice in this report? What stood out to you? What's one thing that stood out to you? So it's going to be very concrete and very directed towards the context of the conversation. So think about that. But what we're really getting in here is those really critical senses. What are those things that people are seeing, hearing, tasting, and ultimately responding to?
Some tips for asking these level questions. You want to make these questions simple for everyone to answer. And again, depending on context, like what Jill said there, you want to try and have questions, particularly the first question that we ask at this level is often a go-around question. We've done that a few times in our session today. And so you want that question to be something that everybody can contribute to. You want to make sure that you're establishing a mood, a tone that tells the group that all of their answers are welcome and important, that the wisdom of the group is important here. And you want some question, again, that is inviting everyone to participate right away. That makes it much more likely that those people are going to contribute and participate throughout the conversation later. Some ways that we've done this, the stacking method we've done, using the chat box. You might do an icebreaker. I don't do this all the time with a virtual session. Sometimes I will give a group an activity to do as people are trickling in right away in the Zoom meeting, because some people arrive early and some people are having technology issues and they don't get in there right away. Sometimes I will try to make sure that I'm giving them something to engage them right away. So that might be an icebreaker sort of a thing at the beginning. The next level, we're getting into people's gut, people's reactions. If you are familiar with Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, this is sort of system 1 thinking. This is the kind of thinking that's knee-jerk, it's automatic, it's reflex, and it's emotional. So we're asking questions like, what did you like? What did you dislike? Where were you challenged? Where were you inspired? What does this remind you of? So these questions aren't only focused on emotions and feelings, they're also questions that get at associations, memories, connections, sort of stuff that's knee-jerk and automatic. If you love the smell of vanilla, maybe it transports you back to your grandma's kitchen and she's making cookies, or she's making bread, or the way a song on the radio sends you back in time to your high school dances that you used to go to. So it's not just emotional, feeling related questions. Sometimes we're asking questions that are about memories, things that are triggered in our minds. Tips for this level of questions: allow people to share those associations to the facts. And so depending on what our goal for the conversation might be, you may want to leave room for some storytelling at this level. You want to avoid asking yes or no questions. And that's not just for this level, that goes for all of these levels. Making sure that questions are open-ended so that people can respond and contribute more rich responses to the conversation. Particularly at this level, you want to make sure you're balancing some questions. So if you ask, what did you like? You want to make sure you also ask, what did you dislike? Where were you concerned? Where were you excited? If you're going to ask one side, make sure you ask the other side at this level. And some ways to create some brave space for people to contribute, particularly at this level, you might send them into breakout rooms where they might feel a little bit more comfortable sharing one-on-one or in a small group in a way that they might not feel comfortable doing in a large group. Or you might just have people put an emoji that reflects their emotional reaction to something, or have them write something quickly in the chat. There are various ways, tools and methods that we use, particularly in virtual settings, for making room for this. And so to give you a sense of this a little bit, I want you, as you look at this picture, drop into the chat what's a thing that you notice right away. Just sort of your knee-jerk reaction. What's something that grabs your attention in this photo immediately? Go ahead and drop that into the chat.
The lightning. Calm and not so calm with the storm. Lightning. Let's hear a few more.
It's okay if you have more lightning responses. You don't have to worry about that someone stole your answer. If that's what you noticed, that's what you noticed. Go ahead and drop it in there.
Thank you for that, Travis. House looks warm and inviting. Beautiful. Lightning, the calm of the picture, peaceful. I think we got a couple more.
Don't overthink it. Lightning, thank you.
Lightning. Great minds.
We get everybody. Who are we missing?
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8.
It's okay. We don't have to belabor this particular step. The point here is just to highlight how all of us see different things and the importance of making space for people to share the thing that jumped out to them. Because our brains are taking in millions of bits of information, but we're only consciously aware of a tiny fraction of that. And so wanting to make some space for people to share what's the little tiny percentage that caught their attention here is important. And what catches our attention is influenced by our life experience, the things that we have been conditioned to give more weight to give more importance to, the things that catch our attention. All of that's influenced by the stuff in our life that brought us to where we are. And so those two levels are about getting that sensory input out into the conversation and making some room for people to react to that and to share what those reactions were.
The one thing I want to point out here is that while many people commented on the lightning, right? So a lot of you responded to that. Some of the different types of responses were more of a narrative response, right? So people interpreted right away that they thought it was beautiful, that it was calm. They were already giving significance to that data. And the other thing I want to point out, while you're all really pretty focused on the lightning, not everybody said the same thing. And just show of hands, did anybody notice the Hue Life logo? See, no show of hands. I'm going to assume that nobody noticed the Hue Life logo. So my question to you there is, does that mean that the Hue Life logo doesn't exist? Right. So the fact that there's data, information that we're not noticing, like Travis said, there's bits and pieces of things that each of us brings to the table. It's not until we hear from everyone at the table that we have kind of this collective understanding of what people are responding to. And just because you didn't hear the music or you didn't see the logo or somebody else didn't notice the house does not mean that those do not exist. And that's the data that each of us individually responds to. So being really cognizant that we want to bring that, surface that information, because it will impact how we respond.
Thanks, Jill. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we'll look at the next 2 levels of this structured conversation.
All right, so let's be back at 1:45. I got 10:35 Central Time, so we got 10 minutes. Or did you say 5?
I said 5, but if you want to give them 10, I was thinking have them back at 10:40.
Let's give them 10. Yeah.
Okay, 10:45.
Go get a coffee, make a call, check your email. And I'm going to do the same.
Don't forget to use restroom.
So I'm going to launch into. Thank you. If you have your workbook, we're going to be looking at page 10 right now. And so we're going to jump into that next level of questioning. And so we're going to continue working through this framework. So Travis went through kind of that data-based, right? That objective level thinking. Then he talked a little bit about that reflective, that emotive thinking, looking at both the positive and the negatives things. And now we're going to continue working and looking at the objective and through the interpretive and the decisional levels. So at the interpretive level, it's now all about that brainstorming. It's about possibilities. It's about the implications. What does this mean for us? What are our options? We're going to get people brainstorming. We're going to have them wonder things aloud. You know, what could be done? What is the impact or the potential actions might have? This really is a time for that ideation, for that brainstorming, for those innovative thinkers to chime into the conversation. This is where you're going to get those visionary folks in who have lots of ideas. They're always the ones with their hand up in the air. You know what we could do? You know what we could do? So this is that level of the conversation that creates space for them. So what options do we have to move forward? What insights are being revealed? These are the questions that we're going to ask. What are the implications of our actions? And as important as what the implications are of our inaction, right? So choosing not to is a choice. Doing nothing is a choice. And what are those consequences? So again, those questions that we were asked, just to repeat, are what are our options? What insights does this bring forth? What are the implications of our action or our inaction? And tips for facilitating this level is really that we want to encourage people here. We want them to be creative. We want to feel like it's a safe space for people to innovate. We're not looking for the why or an understanding of how that would work. It's really about, again, kind of that non-judgmental open space for brainstorming and being innovative. And here, if you feel like there's barriers to that, we can do this anonymously. You can do it in a shared Google Doc. Look for ways that people feel really comfortable to contribute those ideas. This is typically a free-flowing process. It's brainstorming, so it's a generation of ideas. And it's a good idea to decide, to understand and be intentional about whether or not you need to capture these ideas. Sometimes it's important to have that information, retain it so that you can come back to it and reflect on it. Sometimes it's just that free-flowing, getting the brain flowing, throwing out ideas, and it's part of a kind of an organic conversation. But if you do decide that it's important to capture these, you can do it again in a shared Google Doc. You could put things into chat in the virtual world. In face-to-face, you can use flip charts, whiteboards, whatever you need to do to capture that. You can ask somebody to scribe that information. But when it's important to capture this brainstorming work, then make sure that you do it so that you have something to reference and come back to when you're making a decision or coming to a conclusion. Ways that we engage folks here. There's a variety of ways, right, to help people get into that thinking space. And I already talked about, chat box, Google Docs. We can do it in a large group conversation where people are contributing verbally. They kind of riff off each other. One person says something and that triggers an idea for another person. And sometimes those wild ideas, those out of the box thinkers, are the ones who really kind of elevate us and bring us into a new space. And maybe the idea is a little crazy, but maybe there's a nugget that we can really get around that really is attainable. So no censoring here, right? We want to build on our ideas. So if you're in the virtual space, chat can also be used. Small group discussions, breakout rooms are also effective. Finding ways for people to anonymously contribute, Post-it notes, half sheets. Be creative on how you create space for people to do this. But give the detailed thinkers the time they need to formulate their thoughts. Asking people to brainstorm individually. I don't know if you guys have heard of like a think, pair, share. We give people an opportunity to individually think and process. Then you can put them into pairs to share those ideas. And then those pairs can report out to a quad, or they can report out to the larger group. But you're building consensus in those ideas as you do those conversations. But it does give those people time to process and think. Drawing, sketching, doodling, using images, having people, drop an image into chat, whatever that is that really kind of gets people thinking innovatively. You could use improv games like Yes and. There's games where you can have people build on a story. I give you a line and the next person adds another line and another line till we complete this story that we've all now contributed to. So there's different ways to really get people open and thinking. Don't limit the thinking by putting a number on how many ideas people should come up with, right? Try and get something from everybody. Encourage that either by chat or a Google Doc. But leave it open-ended. And if someone asks, tell them more than what you're really looking for, right? We want to get into some deeper thinking here. So don't limit it by numbers and really encourage people to, really dig in. As we were talking about a minute ago, tips for reporting, right? The reporter can be just shared with voice. The recorder, post in chat or use the tool and annotate. It's important to capture the ideas generated in this level. And if you have to break people into smaller groups, have them select a reporter who's going to verbally share out the results of their, of the group thinking and the conversation. And that's what we did earlier, right? So if you're going to record it, then you're going to ask somebody to scribe, copy, record. In our case, we had you annotate onto a slide. So keep all those options in mind. When we move to the decisional level, and this is on page 11 in your workbook, really think about one of those frustrations with a meeting, right? How many times have you left a meeting or a training where there was really, really good discussion, and then you walk out the door and you have no idea what you're supposed to do next? There's nothing assigned, nobody knows. And we end up having the same conversation again at our next meeting. So it really is important in this conversation to come to some decisional level. We tend to, conversations neglect to concretely name that action that is going to happen. Who's going to do what, by when? And the importance of this step is really that you take a great conversation and newfound understanding and appreciation, and you turn it into something that is actionable. So by the time we're done, we feel like we've accomplished something. We know what, we know who, we know when. And not every conversation is going to result in that decision, like this is what Abby's going to do by Wednesday. Sometimes it's that collective understanding that we come to consensus around. So as a facilitator, be sure to know what the goal is for your group. Then based on that goal, craft your questions at this level accordingly. And so here's a few examples that you might use, right? What are our next steps? Who will do what by when? Who will summarize what we've talked about today? So sometimes it is really just codifying that understanding. Tips for facilitating this. Again, we're going to be certain participants have access to the options generated, any implications around those options from the interpretive level. So if it's important to have that present. Once a path forward is decided upon, really be sure to also establish accountability. Again, who's going to do what and by when? Spend time celebrating the accomplishment that groups have made. I think another thing that is missing often from the work that we do with people is taking that minute or two to really say thank you to people for their time and their effort and their energy. Often meetings just end and it's kind of over and see you next week, same time, same bat channel. But really, again, it's about slowing this process down, giving that group an opportunity to appreciate, take in, reflect on, and celebrate the work that they've done. So honoring that by creating that time is really, really important. Doesn't have to take long. And be sure to summarize the results by having some of the participants articulate those next steps before the conversation meeting ends. That's not your place as the facilitator. Have someone who's a participant, a leader within that group to deliver that. Methods for engagement, and there's several methods, right? Polling, annotating, using participant cues, whatever you need to do to capture that, or scribe it, or put it in chat, whatever you need to get that absolute concrete decision at the end. That's what we want to capture, and we want to make sure that everybody's on board with that. Questions about these last two steps? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Travis to do a quick review.
Thanks, Jill. So we've talked about each of these levels. The acronym that we often use as facilitators is ORID, objective, reflective, interpretive, decisional. You've also seen us have on these slides what, gut, so what, now what. This conversation method adds that gut piece. If you've heard what, so what, now what as a framework before, this conversation method adds that sort of gut intuitive step. And a group of youth that Hugh Life worked with once came up with their own acronym, which was Facts, Attitudes, Ideas, Results, which I just love. If I'm working with a group, I rarely use the sort of facilitator jargon of objective, reflective, those words. I often will use facts, attitudes, ideas, results. We're going to have a fair conversation. These are the kind of levels we're going to talk about. You don't always have to tell the group that explicitly that we're going to talk about questions at each of these kinds of levels, but sometimes I find that helpful for a group to just give them a sense of what kind of conversation that we're going to have. Page 14 in your workbook, again, has several examples of questions for you to use. And again, this book, if you don't have it already, tons of questions. I use my book all the time. Why reinvent the wheel if I don't have to? This framework is also helpful for thinking about the kinds of personalities and thinking styles that we have in the groups that we work with. If you think back to that picture exercise, some of you said you noticed the lightning, some of you noticed the reflection on the water, and others of you jumped immediately to affect and feeling and mood. It's calm, it's not calm, it's warm, it's inviting, it's beautiful, it's peaceful. So we all have sort of our way of thinking that we tend to default to because of our life experiences. We've all been in meetings or with groups. You probably have worked with groups where there are people who need that facts, the data, the information. There are people who want to make sure that their feelings are heard and validated. They want to make sure others feel heard and validated. There are people like myself who live in our heads all the time, and we live in that world of ideas and thought and interpretation and meaning. And then there are the people who are like, can we just stop talking and make decisions, move on? So we have all of those different ways of thinking that are in our groups, and all of that is important. And so this framework, this conversational framework, helps us to slow that process down and give each of those people a chance to voice how they've thought about whatever it is that we're talking about.
That point, Travis, let's just pause here for a second. You all
Sure.
received Lumina portraits and have been debriefed on what your different personality qualities are. And the very first chart that you looked at is archetypes, and those are pretty much aligned with these colors. So I'd like to point out that color coding we're using here is reflective of those archetypes that you have in your Lumina portrait. So if you have a lot of blue color in your qualities, that means that you naturally do have this level of data-based and connection to facts and data more strongly than others. And then you've got your people-focused folks, big picture, and direct outcome, results-oriented.
Thank you. Thanks, Irina.
And I'd like to add to that too, that we are all of these things, right? We talked earlier about how the brain, how we as humans naturally process through these levels of thinking and responding. And so while we have those sweet spots that Irina's talking about, so, you know, those folks who really, really need the data, they need that agenda, you know, the day before. They need that report the day before because they need time to take it in. They need time to process it. They need the data before they can move forward. That's their sweet spot. And so each of us kind of has that sweet spot that we sit in and kind of lead with. The purpose of this structure is, again, to slow it down so that each one of those different sweet spots has a space in this conversation. And you will see that people move in and out of engagement depending on the level of questioning. So one other thing I'd say about that is don't assume that as people move in and out of these levels that they're not engaged. It's just maybe not their area. So be cognizant of that. And with that, I think, what else have you got there? Questions?
I think we're ready to move on to, since you're talking, Jill, your turn.
Okay. And always open to questions. So in your book on page 12, we're going to talk about the goals of our conversation. We refer to this as the rational aim, right? So we're looking at how we structure these conversations and how we work into design. And we always start, we have our topic, but then we want to know what our goal is. What is our rational aim? What is our intent? What is the desired outcome? What has been accomplished? We want to know why we're having this conversation. And we're usually really, really good about making those decisions about why we're having this conversation, why we're having this meeting or this session in the first place. But understanding your purpose really goes a long way in helping you determine what those questions ask. So once you've determined what your goals are, all of your questions should lead back to answering and addressing that aim, that goal. So when you're designing, you should keep the two different purposes, and we've got rational and experiential aim. And so when we talk about the experiential aim, we're talking about how do we want our participants to feel after we've had this conversation, after we've had a meeting, after we've had a session. So while we're really good typically at planning what the goals are and the purpose of the meeting, we tend to skip the part about that experiential thing. And so we really want to be clear about that our questions also address that. So we want people to make those personal connections, to feel that they've been heard, to have their contributions valued. But how you want to feel is a result of this conversation. And I would also like to point out that this is also data. So we're asking, do you want the group to leave feeling energized, confident, reassured, intrigued? What is your emotive goal for this? And clarifying that experience you want the participants to have is equally as important as understanding what that rational aim is. And we do this through the structure of the conversation. So again, on page 12 in your workbook, once the purpose of the conversation is established and we've clarified, we can start thinking about the questions we want to ask at each of these levels. And again, I'm going to reference you back to the book because there's so much good information in there, but we're going to try to establish a really solid sequence and flow of these questions. Don't be afraid to go off script if the participants take you there. So we always say have a question in your pocket, have multiple questions at each level, because you will find that the group will take you forward in the conversation. When you start getting questions at a different level, that's a really good cue that they're ready to move forward. Don't skip a step, but you're going to maybe not spend as much time there. If they've already answered a question that you were going to ask a different question. So make sure that we spend time at each of these levels. And again, don't be afraid to go off script. Remember, this is not an interview. This is intended to be a conversation. It should feel natural. It should feel organic. And your goal is to really just kind of guide participants through this process. An analogy that we use is to think of a ball of yarn, right? So if I have a ball of yarn and I launch it and I throw it out to Leah, and Leah answers the first question, then she passes it to Ambrosia, and she answers, Erica, Precious, and we do that all the way around the circle. Now we've kind of built this circle of conversation. Everyone's had a voice, so hopefully they're more likely to contribute. Then the question gets asked and the ball gets lobbed out into the participants again. The goal is then that ball of yarn doesn't keep coming back to the facilitator. the ball of yarn keeps getting passed among the participants, that they're looking to each other, that they're responding to each other. You'll see head shaking, you'll say, aha, you'll have people start to say things like, oh yeah, that made me think of, oh, another thing is going off of that. So you're going to see them start to engage in the conversation outside of you as the facilitator. So suppose we were all asked to review a summary budget, right? That's our topic. With any conversation, again, we want to establish the rational experiential aim. What we want participants to know, understand, or decide might be to understand the new budget projections, create options that will help us plug some of the gaps in that budget. What do we want participants to experience might be to help build positive morale around the budget. What are some things that you think you would, do to help support that? Where are you excited about this? So we're really trying to build some energy around that budget. And, so maybe help them think that this isn't as bad as it looks, right? Give them that silver lining, help them process through it. Knowing what our rational experiential aims are helps us to craft those questions. If we have different aims, our questions will be different. So does that make sense to folks? Okay. On page 14 has all the questions, right? So if we all just review the budget and are sitting down to talk about it, what might be some O-level questions? So anybody can chap in here, or you can put it into chat. What would be an O-level, an objective data level question that you would ask a group of people who just reviewed a budget?
What did we spend the money on? How much do we have to start with?
Right.
Has that project been finished?
There you go.
So we're going to go
Right.
into sample exercise right now, and we'll have a couple of different topics. And rational aim and experiential aim has already been predetermined, so we don't need to worry about practicing that today. That is for the later session. But right now, let's just get our hands on some questions. So between Jill, myself, and Travis, we will be your guides in the breakout room. We'll share a screen so you can see what the structure of the conversation is and the questions that you're given or dealt with. So think about that as a card game, right? Scrumble game. Unscrumble those questions and see if you can align them or assign them to these different levels. O, objective, R, reflective, I, interpretive, or D, decisional. So we're going to have 4, including ourselves, 4 people in each room. One will be with a group of 5. We'll have our 15 minutes. I think that should be enough. So when we come back, we will debrief and close the day. But for this particular activity, let's make it 16 minutes plus a 60 seconds countdown. So let's go ahead and have fun.
Okay, so obviously you can hear me, so I'm not frozen. All right. Well, let's just do a quick go around here. And I know that like my group did not finish our second room, so bear with us. There was a lot of hard thinking going on there. But if I could have everybody go through and just share one takeaway or insight from this scramble activity. Just one quick thing that shows up for you. And anyone can start.
I'll go. I just, the takeaway that I had, it's just the eye-opening of just the natural thinking process of, really where all those things fit into each of those categories. Before, I've never, I facilitated lots of meetings and just did a lot, but I've never thought about how they fit in those categories and where, how you should, ask those questions. So it was enlightening to me.
Okay, thanks, Helena. I'm gonna go with, thanks for starting us off. I'm gonna do Tabitha, Tara, and then Stacy. One quick takeaway.
It was a thinking process. That's all I have to say.
It was. All right. Tara, Stacy, and Nikki.
Can you skip me for right now? I'm tired of with something. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you are.
I'm tired. Oh, man.
And
Can you skip me for right now?
sure, absolutely. Thanks, Tara. Let's do Stacy and then Nikki. Stacy, you're muted. Okay, I'm gonna go on. I don't know if it's my end or everyone else's end. How about Nikki, Leah, and then Grayson?
One takeaway that I gained is that it was definitely a thinking process, and it's the steps. Like you have to, like it's steps to it, and I never really just paid any attention to that. So it's definitely a lot of steps and requires thinking strategically.
Okay. Thanks, Nikki. Leah and then Grayson.
Yeah, I agree with Nikki about the steps. You never really think about that, but I also noticed that everyone thinks differently and thinks, categories can go into different areas for different people depending on the conversations. And that's what I got from it.
Okay, thank you. And Grayson.
Very similar to what she just stated. A lot of those questions can be interpreted 2 or 3 different ways and correctly be put into different categories, just depending upon the context of the conversation or the mindset of the person asking the question. So I thought that was very interesting.
Thank you. And who do we miss? Tara, we're coming back to you.
Just skip her.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And Stacy, if you're on, you can chime in. Otherwise, just jump in at the next question. So now expand it out and think about the, you've already kind of gone there with the conversation that matters framework. And so specifically about that framework, is there anything different from what you commented on the scramble activity, or what different things were you thinking about when you think of the actual framework for the conversations that matter? So takeaway or insight. And anybody can jump in.
I've never really thought about the categories during a meeting, conducting or attending a meeting. So that's a little bit different and kind of hard to get your thought process going in that way. So I think it's going to take a lot more prep work at the beginning to get the questions right as to whatever meeting you're trying to conduct.
Well, let's go there a little bit. How did you find, considering the emotional or the rational aim and the experiential aim, how did that impact how you looked at the questions and the flow of questions?
It was kind of hard to put them in each of the categories because you could put them in multiple categories. And I think, with my experience, my background being different than other backgrounds, it had me thinking in an opposite direction than what I should have been thinking in. It's just a very different scenario for me personally. So it's going to take some getting used to, I think.
Right. And our hope with the next couple of sessions that you're going to build some muscle memory around this. Remember, we're asking you to tap into how people actually process information. And what I've heard in a number of the comments is that this is about you're thinking intentionally. And that is a big goal for us here, is that you approach this intentionally. I talked about with my small group that we write out our scripts. You know, I said, I don't write out a script and plan a conversation when I'm coming home to talk to my kid or my partner. But if it's a meeting, if it's a conversation that matters, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to plan. I'm going to have those goals identified, and I'm going to craft a conversation based on those goals. All of those questions should lead your participants back to those goals. The experience and rational aim are the guardrails for your conversation. It's also a tool to keep people on scope, right? So if you feel like it's going off the rails, getting off scope, bring them back to what those goals and rational aims are. And so we also talked about in our group that words matter. So when you get that decisional level, right, we want to be absolute. We want to know exactly what will you be doing, who will be doing it. If it's above that, if it's a higher level thinking and we're still generating ideas, we're still in that interpretive level. And the example I used is, I could clean my house, but will I clean my house? Which is very different than I will do something. So it is about intentionality. It's about the structure. It's about following the process. It's about creating space at each one of those levels for each one of those different thinkers to engage in the conversation, to bring their best self to that conversation. And so with that, do you guys have any questions about the scramble? Do you have any questions about the structure of the conversation that matters? Any questions? All right. Then I'm gonna put you all on the spot again. And I'm going to ask, I came today with blank, and I'm leaving today blank. I came today blank, I'm leaving today blank. Who would like to start?
I will.
Thank you, Leah.
I came today with great expectations, and I'm leaving today a little more confused.
Good. The brain's working. Leah, who do you want to pass it off to?
Well, Nikki's on the screen next to my name, so let's go with her.
Perfect. Nikki.
I was thinking about it, Leah. You got me on the spot. I came today unaware of the structure of a conversation that matters. I am leaving today more familiar with the structure of a conversation that matters, but still confused a little bit. So
I'm okay. We're going to sit in that discomfort for a bit. That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
And Nikki, who are you going to pass this on to?
I'm going to pass it to, I'll give it to Helenia.
All right, Helena.
Okay. I came today hoping to just be a better communicator, how to carry on a conversation better. I'm leaving today with some tools to do that with, with these questions that will be very beneficial, especially when we're meeting with our community partners. So I'm excited about that.
All
I do
right.
have to say there is some confusion. I'm with Leah and Nikki as well, so I'm there. So
That's okay.
thank you.
Helena, who are you gonna pass it to?
I will pass it over to Grayson.
Thank you. Grayson.
I came today with no idea what we talked about, and I'm leaving today with a more polished and refined way of asking questions in meetings.
All right. And Grayson, I see that you're driving, so unless you can pull a name off, you can just throw it out there if you've got one. But I don't want you looking. You're muted.
Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
All right, I'm going to pass it for you. I'm going to pass it to Tabitha.
I came today ready to learn, and I'm leaving today needing more answers.
Okay, thank you, Tabitha. Who do you want to pass it to, Tabitha?
You're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Ambrisha.
Okay.
So I came today excited for you all's first exposure to this method. And I am leaving today still excited and looking forward to you all's growth and progression with this particular method. And I will pass it on to Precious.
Thank you, Precious.
I came today with an open mind because I've done a few Hue Life trainings, and so I never know what to expect or what I'm going to get out of them. And I'm leaving today in a good way, and I'm leaving today with I would have to say an even more understanding with how to construct these conversations. Like Travis said, the confusion is normal, and how you said, and the more and more you do it, the more it makes sense. So this is just one more little step for me. And I'm going to pass it off to I'll pass it to Erica.
So I came today with a great deal of experience facilitating, but I am leaving today with more structured knowledge in how to facilitate a group setting instead of just facilitating, but with more structure.
Thanks, Erica.
And
we've got Robbie and Stacy left.
I came in today knowing that this would cause a little bit of confusion, just because it is the very first experience that you have with this. But I am leaving affirmed that I was right, but also with optimism that you'll get this down, and you'll be master facilitators in just a few weeks. I'm complete.
Excellent, thanks. I think Stacy, wrap us up.
Hey, I'm sorry. I had someone in my office. I have been listening though. What was the question?
Just, I came today blank. I'm leaving today blank. Just fill in the blanks.
I guess I came today with a little bit of probably a little bit more of an expectation than everybody else because I missed this part last year, but I kind of got everything afterwards. But after today, I do feel more confident about using the ORID. I'm complete.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. All right, with that, we're about ready to wrap it up here. I'm going to give one more chance for any quick questions that you might have. Otherwise, we're going to be back together in 2 days. So think about it. Write those questions down and we'll try and address them in the next session. So any quick questions?
Might be
All
helpful to
right.
take a look at the book too, Jill, right? First couple.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Take a look at the Art of Focus Conversation book, spend some time reading that, peruse those conversations, look at how they're structured, steal them, steal conversations, steal questions. The other thing I'd say about that is do not try to be clever, right? Do not overthink your questions. Ask exactly what you want to know. This is not questions that people should be having to think about or process. And it's like, well, what is she really getting at? Keep it simple, keep it direct, keep it accessible for people. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ambrosia. And she's going to bring us home for the time for lunch.
Robbie, do we have some closeout slides? Nope. Okay. So just a reminder, everybody, we do have the second session this Thursday, again, from 9 to 12. We look forward to seeing you all. We're, of course, going to kind of continue this learning, get a better understanding of conversations that matter. If you all have any questions before Thursday or if anything comes up, please reach out to myself or anybody on the team. I want to thank you all for your engagement today, and we're looking forward to session 2.